Welcome to Tech Talk. That's TEC, as in Technology Education by Connect Us. And see what we did there? See? And welcome and thank you for joining us, right? So what we're doing at Connect Us, what we want to do is kind of have a podcast, a little short video that everyone can kind of enjoy and also pick something out and learn something from a data and technical perspective that might be out there, especially with the cellular carriers and how all of our solutions fit in with IT infrastructure and our customers and all that good stuff. So we're here to answer questions. We're here to kind of go over some of the topics that might be a little more complicated or a little more confusing and all that good stuff. So both Bryan and I are here. We're your hosts for this. So I'll go first introduce myself just so you know who I am. I'm Ryan Bowman. I come from 16 years at Verizon Wireless, mostly in the data and technical sales teams. I have over 20 years in cellular technologies in general, with a few other carriers as well. And so happy to be here, happy to be part of the Connect Us team. We are a value-added reseller and resource for the carriers, so we can partner with you guys and just help our customers, right, with solutions or hardware that you might not stock. Anything from that perspective, we can help you take care of the customer. So that's a little bit about who I am. I'll let Bryan do his introduction.
Hey y'all, Bryan East. I'm the wireless WAN architect for Connect Us. I'm also the uglier member of our data team with Ryan. I have about 20 or so years of networking, both wired and wireless experience, as well as cybersecurity and digital forensics. I will be the guy you want to bring in when you've got complex networking requirements. You need to know the ins and outs of the hardware itself, the back-end software. I'm also an avid gamer about games. I'm your guy.
Nice. And you got a rockin' beer game going on. I'm nowhere close to that. So, ugly, I don't know. That's in the eye of the beholder, right? So the beer game's pretty
it's more salt than pepper these days.
That just happens from too much IT work, right? So we're gonna get started here. We're gonna jump in today. We're gonna be talking about just the general understanding of devices and cellular enabled devices and kind of what's embedded inside them, how they're built, what they have inside them, and how they work. And then we're going to discuss networking as well, right? So I really want to get us into just understanding the infrastructure that our customers already have. It's very similar to our home infrastructures as well, because we all probably have some type of landline or some type of connection to the internet from our homes, right? And so we're really going to talk about what that infrastructure looks like and how cellular really comes in and enables and plays in that. What we'll do when we're having conversations with customers, a lot of times the cellular side of that is almost a little scary for a typical IT team, because that's a relatively new way to connect back out to the internet, especially from a business perspective, right? So there's a lot of questions, but the fact still remains that cellular isn't anything brand new. We're not changing the infrastructure. We're simply, I would almost say we're almost just swapping out the engine, right, of a vehicle, right? The vehicle doesn't change itself. But and then sometimes we just have a backup car or a backup engine for it, right? So there's a couple different ways we can play there, and we just want to really make sure that we understand that the infrastructure stays the same. Sometimes we just add a cellular component to it, so it's not as wild of a difference as some might think. So let's just jump into that right now. First up, when we're looking at our devices, is I want to talk about the types of radios that are in these routers, right? And so and really the radios are in any cellular enabled device, but we're going to talk specifically routers today. So cellular, right? This is the cat's pajamas. When I say the cat's pajamas, that's kind of a play and a pun on words of when we're talking specifically to 4G LTE technology, they are broken down in categories. And we'll discuss that at a later date and later time. But for all intents and purposes, every one of these devices has to have a cellular radio in it. That is the way it communicates with the cellular network, right? So that's pretty simple. Second, they have a Wi-Fi radio in them, right? And so the idea behind the Wi-Fi radio is that's literally, in most cases, there's some cellular adapters out there that won't have Wi-Fi in them. So it's we really want to make sure as we're talking to a customer, we understand their needs. But the Wi-Fi radio is literally what produces the Wi-Fi signal from that router so end users can connect over Wi-Fi to that device and get out to the internet, right? Pretty straightforward there as well. Next, we have GPS. So not all devices have a GPS radio in them. There are a lot that do. You'll see this specifically, especially when people are putting cellular routers in cars, police cars, ambulance, EMS. They can get additional feature sets out of the GPS. You don't see as much of a need on fixed sites, but there are a lot of larger companies that like to know where their devices are deployed at, maybe branch offices, right? So that's an advantage to having a GPS radio in the router. And lastly, bringing us home, this one's sort of new, actually. Not new as in a technology. I mean, I guess it's newer than some of the other technologies there, but ultimately, you're starting to see some Bluetooth radios creep into some of these devices. And there's a couple reasons for that. One of the coolest features I've seen that they can use Bluetooth for is from a home end user, right? So we're seeing a lot of internet solutions going into consumer homes and houses. And one thing as consumers that we are familiar with is Bluetooth, right? We pair our Bluetooth headsets, we pair our Bluetooth speakers, we do all this fun stuff. And so some of the manufacturers have caught on to this, which is a really cool idea, and they will enable their app to connect Bluetooth to a router for the initial setup and maybe for some additional features, right? So that's super cool there. Let's talk a little bit about antennas. Again, this is cellular technology, and one thing we know about cellular technology is the closer we can get the device or the signal for the device to a tower without anything interrupting it, the better the signal is going to be, which is the better the bandwidth and the better the performance of that device is going to be. So again, there are various antennas from indoor to outdoor that can give better coverage. It's something to keep in mind. There are devices with internal embedded antennas. There's devices with external antennas, but it's really important to understand that there are also antennas that are built for each technology. Some of them encompass 4G and 5G. Some of them only are 4G or only 5G. So not every antenna is built the same, and it's really important we understand the solutions that we're going to need when we're picking out an antenna. Additionally, there's some really cool antenna technology out there. Those radios that we just spoke about, every one of them uses some sort of antenna for the most part. And so there's some really cool antennas out there that with one antenna, they'll have cabling for every one of those radios and devices. So you can have one antenna plugging into multiple ports on your router, which is. So there's an example. I'm just using a Cradle Point here as an example, but that's what a router looks like, right? All those gold, what we call SMA connectors. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 9 of them, I believe, on that one, right?
Yeah.
Those will all be for antenna connections. So, and then of course the Ethernet ports on those as well, right? So just a good example. And then one last piece that really goes along with the router is cloud management. Some of the manufacturers offer this for free. Some of the manufacturers offer this at a licensing rate. There's different bundles. There's different, including warranties are sometimes bundled in with licensing. So that's another component that we always want to be talking to our customers about and understanding their needs. We can make sure that they're able to manage everything from one pane of glass, one nice cloud management portal that they can do configurations and such. So that's devices, antennas, and management at a quick view of kind of all the components that make that up. I'm going to hand it over to Bryan to talk about the internet.
Interwebs. All right. So a little bit more on networking 101. How do you get to talk to Google or Facebook or cat videos from your computer? It all starts, as we know, from the internet. So the internet will bring it in to a modem. Now, a modem is specifically a gateway. What it does is it takes the signal from the internet. So you've got data coming in from the internet, your cat videos and whatnot, and it turns it into a kind of data that your devices can actually understand. The reason it's different is that it traverses the internet in a lot more efficient manner according to specific protocols. And so this modem brings it in and converts it into languages, so to speak, that your devices can understand. Then it goes to a router. Now, Keep in mind, in the most scenarios, your modem and your router are actually going to be the same device. It does both. What the router does is it takes that signal that's brought in from the modem and it pushes it out to all of your devices, your printers, your computers, your access points, all of these things. And it provides a local network for all of them to connect to. So the router will usually have two ways or more of disseminating this information, right? So one of them is wired connection. You've got your Ethernet, your Cat6, your Cat6Es. And by the way, you're going to hear in later episodes a lot of discussion about Cat4 and Cat6, 12, Cat18. And this, from a networking perspective, we've all grown up on Cat6, Cat5 being Ethernet cables. But when we're talking about cellular, they decided to trick us and use the same naming convention in Cat6 and Cat4 and Cat1M and all of these others. It's a different kind of use of Cat, right? So that's a little sidebar there. So going back, you can connect your devices physically with a Ethernet cable to your router. Most of us at home, especially, will use the Wi-Fi. Right? So you set up your Wi-Fi on your router, the SSID, that's the name of your network, and then the password to it. Set up your encryption, make sure it's safe, and then it broadcasts to all of the devices at your house, your printer, your desktop computer, your laptops, your smartphones, your smart TVs. All of those things will connect to it. And then when your computer is seeking out your, going out to look at Facebook, it goes through the router. You've got their little network in there. Sometimes it's 192.168.0. something, and then it goes to your modem. Now your modem has an important thing to it. It connects your network to the outside network, right? So if you think about it, there are millions of small networks around the world that start with 192.168.something. You look at your home internet, that's probably what it is. But they can't all be the same and talk to each other on the internet. And this is where the modem comes in. It does what's called NAT, Network Address Translation. Your modem on the outside has a way different IP address of all of them in the world. And so that's how your 192.168 doesn't have the same location IP address as somebody else's. As mine is as Ryan's at his house. We're talking through this. So that's how that gets out to the internet. One other piece internally is an access point, right? So especially if you have a larger house, you find that the further away you get from your router, the weaker your Wi-Fi signal is. And this is where your access point comes in. It's connected through an Ethernet cable, and it acts as another, what Ryan was talking about, radio that pushes that Wi-Fi signal out just the same as it was from the router in a different spot of your location. That the devices that are way over there can have just as good of just as good of Wi-Fi connection as the devices near your router. And the last major piece of equipment that we'll talk about is your network switch. So while the same is over on the other side of the office, got a Wi-Fi access, gives Wi-Fi to a whole bunch of devices. Over here, you've got a network switch, which is the Ethernet version of that, so to speak. And if you don't have enough physical connections on the back of your router, this is where a network switch is going to come in place. Now, lots of enterprise environments are going to have what's called a switch stack, or even a core stack, which has auxiliary stacks. You'll have MDFs, IDFs, all sorts of lots of switches going on. But essentially what they do is they provide extra Ethernet ports for your devices to physically connect into. And this can be everything like you see up here: barcode scanners, cameras, all sorts of any wired or wireless connected device can be attached to your network through a network switch, router, and an access.
Good deal. All right. Bring us back here. Thank you, Bryan. One last thing we want to leave you with. We kept thinking like every week we should leave you with like the tech tip of the week or the tech talk of the week or something, right, from that standpoint. And one of the items that Bryan and I have had the pleasure of testing lately is, if you're familiar with the ATEL products, the ATEL V810 devices out there. It's a small internet device, a little larger than like a MiFi or Jetpack type device, or like mobile hotspot, but it packs a little bit more of a punch from a functionality standpoint. So we've been using this access kit, which is a kit design that they designed, a lot for emergency situations or just a nice travel kit, right? So the actual device itself is right here, right? It's a Cat4 little LTE router. It's got Ethernet on it. It's got the ability to use an external antenna. It does have an internal antenna already embedded, so you won't need the external antenna. And then this kit's kind of nice because it comes with, just a spot for everything, right? So as we're looking at it, there's a 10,000 milliamp additional battery. By the way, there's already, I think it's an 1,800 milliamp battery in the router itself, which is pretty awesome. A spot for an antenna. So it's just a nice little travel kit that comes along with it. We just wanted to kind of share, some different devices, things that we're seeing out there. We can obviously source these for you if you have a need for them. Really cool. Like we talk a lot about what happens during a storm, like a tornado, hurricane, stuff like that, where you might not have internet or landline available, and you might not have power. So a kit like this can be, you can be up and running for a few days with internet, potentially, depending on how much of it you're using, and having that backup battery to help with the whole thing. So hopefully you enjoyed this tech talk today. We're gonna let you roll from this perspective, but I did, again, we are going to be doing more of these, so stay tuned for our next episode. Right, we're actually going to be talking about those categories, and so we'll get into the cat's pajamas and continue to follow us on LinkedIn. Right, so you can see collectively what we're doing as a company to truly positively impact our community. So we have a desire at Connect Us to help give back to our community, and we're doing that in a various different amount of ways as well. So thank you so much. Have an amazing day.